profession like the whole world is pretending. Found the truth around the penguin. Get a gang on with a blessing. All the other gang are stressing. RPSC on a nesting. Only real one's gonna get this. Fake ones don't accept this. They can miss a message. Timbuktu got bodies, yeah. Find them in our records. Auto host a message. Squad are represented. Killing you with knowledge, yeah. The uppers getting better. Oh, you're so effective. Cause we're so effective. Let go of your worries, yeah. The whole thing is a setup. We got it and we get it. Offering refreshment. Level up your conscience, yeah. It's honestly the essence. This wave is uncontainable. Facts are undebatable. You lanes are unrelatable. Give a fuck about saving you.
Is this thing on? It's 2/12/2025. This is the Ips Evening Deprogram. I sent out notifications a little while ago. This is some allergic to bullshit. Fepe Akbar. Featuring Lean Dion. So we're a little late, but no big deal. I'm trying to wake up earlier and start everything earlier. I'd like to have like a 6 p.m. starting point because I think there's a lot of people on the East Coast who are missing out. Gondola Wish says February is a slow month. We're at the halfway point, and I don't think we've really seen it all yet. I think there's more planes falling. I haven't watched the recent releases in the movies, but that would be an indicator. For example, the new Captain America is coming out. And the Captain America is the one that had to modify the trailer because it so closely approximated what happened on 7/13/2024, and it came out a couple days before, where Harrison Ford is the president, he gets shot at, and they actually changed it because of it. How many times do we see movies and TV shows alter their plots or subtract scenes because they resemble future incoming events? Like, are all these directors just psychic? What's going on? But anyway, it was something of a controversy and a story back in the summer, but the movie comes out this month. So that may be portentous. Thank you for joining Maggart 4822, Jungle Jim, Let's Go, LAC, Roxy W from D Live, and HLG. Phones are open, by the way. 505-510-4226. I'm trying to get all the stuff working. So, for example, we have, here we go. I got a voicemail. I'm not sure if I should play this one. But anyway, we have the Godzilla back on. So Godzilla and the video overlay. For some reason the chat's not showing up on the screen. I'm still trying to figure it out. But I'm putting it together brick by brick. Infinite Plane Radio. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hello, Mr. Osmond.
Hey, what's up? I got your voicemail, but I'm glad you called in. You can explain it live.
Yes, sir. So, what do you think about all these people coming on, like, making the military look good? Like, it's always popping up in my recommended, all these veterans giving their stories and whatnot and making it sound cool.
I haven't seen any of it recently, but what I've noticed is they hype up the PsyOps department. I don't know if you've looked into some of those ads, but I haven't looked too much into it. I was hoping to see some more commercials for Space Force. It's going to be really hard to make that look cool. Which branch in particular is hyping up? I mean, I'm not a huge critic of it. I think the military does a lot of great things. However, everything in this world is rigged and controlled and ultimately serves the system. But regardless, what types of commercials are you seeing?
They're not commercials. It's like full interviews, and it's not like they're special ops people and whatnot, and they give interviews and they're
Okay.
exposing stuff that they were doing over there at the time. You know, like that back in the day we would have been called conspiracy theorists for talking about, yet they're talking about it.
Oh, interesting. Kind of like whistleblowers. Do you think they're faux whistleblowers, or are they actually disclosing anything useful or even verifiable?
Um, they're not saying anything that we don't know already.
Well, I think it's so compartmentalized that I don't think that you're ever going to have an authentic whistleblower, much less from the military, unless it's a psyop or misinformation. And I think that the public is way too credulous anyway. Like people believe in the secret space force. Bart Sabrell pushes that. There's a secret space program that's more advanced than what the public sees, and it's like the only secret is they're faking space travel. But anyway,
Look at that Indian space program.
um, they landed a probe on the moon, didn't they?
Supposedly.
Supposedly. I know. No, you know what kind of
Yeah.
irks me about this is that decade after decade, other nations match NASA's achievements, but the special effects aren't improving. And the Chinese space station, I'm one of its biggest critics, I think. It looks like they ordered an ISS off of Wish. It's absolute garbage. And I'm wondering, why can't they improve the special effects? Is it because it would give away the whole game if they make a dramatic leap from like 2015 era to current special effects? Because they're lagging, is what I'm saying. They're definitely lagging.
How they perceive space and Netflix looks a whole lot better than what NASA provides.
Yeah, definitely. And I watch a lot of science fiction. Although one thing I've noticed that's a staple in science fiction is the people on spaceships, whatever the scenario is, however far in the future it is, they walk around like their feet are just sticking to the floor. And they have these weak explanations where it's just like a normal house. It's like a normal home. It's like they're just living a normal life on a spaceship. And I'm wondering, why don't they have more science fiction shows where the people are just floating around? And I wonder if it's, again, maybe it's because they don't
What was
want to
that
outdo
show
NASA.
called where they were in space supposedly? And
Space
everybody
cadets.
was in on it except a few
Space
people. What was it called?
Space cadets.
Yes, Space Cadets.
And Space Cadets was a 10 episode season where they convinced a number of people they were in low Earth orbit. And the big reveal to me, though, is that half of the people who were supposedly being convinced they were in space were actually in on the conspiracy. And their job was to keep the people who weren't from putting together any of the pieces. In other words, prevent them
Like
from
the
becoming
Truman Show.
conspiracy theorists. You can be a conspiracy theorist, but they don't want you to network with other conspiracy theorists because you might actually figure something out.
Yes, sir. And I had another question for you. What's your whole opinion on the whole border thing? Like, the, they want to classify the cartels as terrorists now?
Yeah, I think it's more, I guess, bluffing from Trump. Everything he's doing now, that was part of his initial sales pitch back in 2015, 2016. The first thing he did is he shows up on the border with a MAGA hat. That's how he announced himself as like a candidate, and he talked about how he was going to execute the leaders of the drug cartels and build a wall. None of it happened. So everything that I'm hearing now just sounds recycled, and I'm just like I'm pretty much ignoring it. I don't think there's anything significant to it. And the right wing hypes up the threat from illegal aliens the same way they seem to hype the threat from aliens, which they now say are demons. I think it's all Psywar. And I think the idea is make people insecure.
If they're not scared, how are you going to control them?
Exactly. They're being replaced. And there's so many contradictions in this whole idea. It's like, hey, that we're being replaced. At the same time, they say we're being depopulated. Well, if we're being depopulated, shouldn't you welcome more people coming in? And they're like, well, we don't want those people. It's like, well, what are you really about? But yeah, I've stepped out of that big bubble of Trump followers who think that he's going to somehow fight the deep state and change things fundamentally. No, it's very surface level. I mean, he managed to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I think the AP's trying to ignore it. And he did rename a mountain, didn't he? To Mount McKinley. But it's all surface.
Yeah, well, that Gulf is right in the middle of North America and South America. Why wouldn't it be the Gulf of America, right?
And let me also, what do you think of this? So Musk is up here with Doge, or Department of Government Efficiency, cutting wasteful spending. How come he doesn't talk about NASA? What is NASA's budget and what is it going to? So the fact that the fact that people believe that Musk is actually fighting for limited government and democracy, it's laughable considering he sits atop the space program and undersigns all of it. And that's the biggest money sink, I think, of all the various departments that execute psyops. I mean, it's a huge budget operation, NASA. It's and
The first
SpaceX.
ruler of Mars will be called the Elon.
Yeah, that's the thing too. They say that Trump took the moon rock out of the Oval Office because they no longer care about going to the moon because now they're shooting for Mars.
Right on, Tim.
Anyway, appreciate the call and yeah, call back anytime. Any if you have anything else. Any ideas on the planes? Someone is asking in the chat. More plane crashes. It seems like ever since Carry On and Flight Risk came out, it's been nonstop news
Can
stories
you say
about
it again?
planes.
I kind of lost you after plane crash. I'm sorry.
Have you been keeping up with the latest, like the plane crash of the day?
Another one?
Yeah, I mean it's not a tragedy. This one it like crashes into the ocean and the pilots eject. It's like an Air Force thing. Just seems like this is all again, in my opinion, theater. And it's just amazing how they're able to focus people. One month it's drones, then first it was the assassination, the CEO being assassinated. Then it was drones, then it was fires, and then for a little while I think they kind of managed to steer back into politics, but then it got right back into plane crashes.
Honestly, like in this past year, they've been hyping up a whole lot of plane malfunctions or whatever. And I think that's just so to get people to stop traveling. They want to keep you where you're at.
Yeah, there's layers to it. I mean, that's one reason. I've also noted this um, tendency or this trend of blaming Boeing for everything and all these accidents being assigned to Boeing. And I looked into it, and it's because Boeing is seen as something of a an exemplar of crony capitalism. And so it's kind of getting into a critique not just of what airplanes are doing to the environment, but to the capitalist system and greed, which makes things less safe because of deregulation. And they've correlated the plane crashes with the train derailments that were right before that, which was a couple of years ago. But yeah, it's all recycled psyops, if you ask me. I'm not all that um, agitated.
Yeah, and one last thing, IPS chat. Let's uh let's throw it out so Tim Osmond can go on the Higher Side Chats podcast.
Okay, okay, I'll
I'll
look
be
into
the
it.
first one to throw it out. I'll be the first one to throw it out.
You know what I'll have to do? I think he reviews books and talks to authors. Maybe I'll send him a copy of Autohoaxology and see if we can get into a conversation about it. So thanks for the suggestion, and I'll certainly follow up with it.
Yes, sir. You have a blessed one.
Thank you. Likewise. Phones are open 505 510 4226. Ears Up says military jets crashing in San Diego happens occasionally. Yeah, and we don't know from the outside if these are drills or not. And the helicopter, the Black Hawk that was hit by the airplane, that was done during a drill. It was a continuity of government doomsday drill, like an evacuation drill. And I don't think it's separate from all of the drills going on in the Northeast for a nuclear incident. I think these are all interconnected. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey Tim, it's Nick Finger.
Hey, what's up, Nick Finger? How you doing? Thank you for calling.
Hey, good. Hey, I've just been thinking about one of your theories on how the moon is made out of petrified wood, but I think that you're overlooking something that you talked about on the last show, how the meteorite that made all the dinosaurs extinct sent all of that matter all over the place, and some of it landed on the moon. So they probably just found a piece of wood that landed on the moon from that asteroid impact.
That's a strong possibility that you got all the lunar dust and they see these rocks, but these rocks are just leftover matter from the Earth from the impact 66 million years prior. That sounds highly likely, like a more likely explanation. And I still think there should be somewhere like a dinosaur belt. Like there ought to be dinosaur bones still in orbit, and I worry for the ISS that one of these days a big T-Rex skull is going to puncture the side of it or flip it or something. But that's
Yeah, they should
science.
probably spend a lot more money on a study on how to prevent dinosaur bones from puncturing holes in the side. But then again, I mean, every astronaut does have 10 fingers, so they can plug a lot of holes.
Yeah, that was a weird story. If people don't know, there was a hole drilled into the ISS, and they say they plugged it with their finger. And I mean, I guess it's not that big of a deal. I always thought that if you poked a hole in it, everybody would get sucked out, some kind of sci-fi nightmare. You're all just like,
I think
but
it's the opposite. I think a hole in the ISS, water comes in.
yeah, yeah, that's another thing too. I mean, haven't there been incidents where astronauts on spacewalks have nearly drowned? And it's like, what is that? And they say, oh, it's the air conditioning unit on the spacesuit. It's like, no, it's because you guys are scuba divers and you're LARPing.
Yeah. All right. I was just calling in to make that comment, but I'll keep on listening. Have a good
Excellent.
night.
Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. All right, everyone, that is Nick Fingar. Phones are open. And I haven't embellished the screen very much. Again, I just jumped one computer to the next. And last night I tried to play Chief Crow's Dinosaurs in Space, and I hadn't fixed the audio yet, but now we have it fixed. Joined by Pocahontas FTW. Gondola Wish says, remember the movie The Abyss? They show you everything. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. The Abyss. Isn't that James Cameron? We were just talking about James Cameron last night and the connection between the LA riots, and also the connection between, Terminator, the LA riots, Terminator 2, and then also the connection between Avatar 2, Way of Water, and the riots in Atlanta between Cop City and the environmentalists. But he was filming a documentary called Ghosts in the Abyss on 9/11 2001 at the site of the sunken Titanic parts in a capsule, in a submersible called the Deep Sea Challenger. I mean, there's quite a lot there to unpack, but there's a great deal of significance to the concept here with James Cameron and the Abyss as it ties into Revelation 9/11. And weirdly enough, Donald Trump, if you want to follow those threads. Joined by Esteban says, how come we don't see the movement of water though? Just curious, not siding with them. Okay, well, it depends on where you're looking. So, for example, when they're in the ISS, they're not dangling from bungee cords. I don't really mean that. They're using some kind of seesaw and counterweight, just like the movie Inception. Christopher Nolan, look at the behind the scenes, the Inception movie behind the scenes. They show how they can fake zero G with no wires and no CGI. Now, when they go outside the space station and they do their spacewalks, there are some parts of it that are, some scenes aren't done underwater, but many of them are, and you can tell by the darkness, by the light loss. And also, whenever they do the dockings, like when the Dragon capsule lines up and then it merges with the ISS, that is also done underwater. And it's given away by, well, the bubbles, but the lighting. And you got to look at divers going 40 feet underwater at night looking for manta rays. And look at the bubbles, look at the light loss, the light diffusion. It's the exact same as you see on the spacewalks. And it doesn't match, doesn't correlate with the photography. So some astronauts sitting in the cupola taking pictures of the Earth, and you got these real clear photos of the Earth. But then they're on a spacewalk with the video cam on their helmet or whatever, and you can only see 50 feet, and then it just goes dark. I'm like, what's the difference here? Well, it's because they're obviously using their simulation, the neutral buoyancy lab, which is where they simulate space, and they're faking space where they simulate space. It's really not that complicated. They've always been faking space. So when they're outside the space station, bubbles in space give it away, but the light loss. And of course, um, you have to go through the clips, and there's so much content there. I had this concept, and I want to do it. Like, it has to be done, like this year. And the concept is we bring in 2 or 3 video editing experts. Not hard to find. You pay them for their time, and you say, here's your assignment. I need you to watch this footage, and you give them 2 hours of footage and some select bits. Like, I'll show them the space shuttle mission where it appears to be the case that they're filming the sky, pretending to be above the clouds, filming the ocean. And they have that fuel tank that they're following as it drops, but it appears to be ascending, like it's a balloon. And interestingly enough, in this footage, you see some kind of a blimp recovery jet pass by the space shuttle. So I want to show all this footage to some experts and get their objective opinions and see how many of them will lie to themselves to protect propaganda and how many of them will just objectively say, yeah, this is fake, this is real. I want to see how reality compromised people are. But I think if they're not told where it comes from, they're going to say, oh, this is how it was faked. I wouldn't want to deceive them and say, this is fake, can you tell us how they did it? But we'll see. Nick Fingar says Skylab footage is even more hilarious than the ISS. That's a pretty high bar, but I'll look. Skylab, all kind. That's the one that fell, right? Gondola Wish says, have you ever looked into the indoctrination practices of PBS TV programming like Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Uh, I haven't really thought about it, but now that I look back, it just wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I talked to a couple of communists, basically, a friend, her parents were proud communists, they were writers. And one of them, I think both of them even, were Emmy Award winning writers for children's cartoons. And this was back when I was very apolitical and I didn't care. I was just like, oh, cool, you're communist, whatever. And what they were describing was how they worked on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Captain Planet, and Muppet Babies, and they were explaining to me the subtext of these movies, where the bad guy's always a CEO polluting the world, how the Muppets is about the nanny state and a world community that's totally diverse and managed from some faceless entity. And they went through these various TV shows just explaining to me how, yeah, it's always been propaganda targeting the youth. And if you look back, yeah, all these children's cartoons, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Captain Planet, yeah, it's all just preparing people for the era of Gaia worship and the demonization of CEOs. So the people who grew up watching Captain Planet see Luigi Mangione shoot a CEO and they applaud. Like, oh, good, it's good for the environment. That's how long term and strategic the mind war really is. So who knows what they put into their heads? I mean, if you want to understand people's outlooks on life, I think you probably should go back and look at some of these older shows. I know Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood really messes with the Mandela affected for some reason. All right, let's continue here. Phones are still open, 505-510-4226. Let's go through our notes. If you want to follow the notes, there's a link at ips.monster. I make it easy. I make it so you don't have to type out infiniteplanesociety.com. Just type in ips.monster. Takes you to the same place. So if you look at the screen, this is a billboard. Elon Musk is the enemy. Now, I don't know if this is real or AI, but I've been seeing a lot of this stuff. I've been seeing posters of it on bus stops, and it seems to be the same image. It's a Big Brother-esque version of Musk. I've never seen him make this face in real life. Like, he always plays this kind of likable meme guy, edgelord, but he's not all that threatening or imposing, but in this image he appears to be. And if you recall, I've been talking about, since it came out at the time, the #1 movie on Netflix, The Madness, the #1 series, and how the antagonist was basically Elon Musk, funding the Nazis online, turning them violent. This was called The Madness, the mind virus that turned them violent. And he becomes, well, he gets assassinated, and the people are basically happy about it. And interestingly, since that show, it's a series, came out, Musk has morphed into that character. And right after the show came out, Luigi hit the world stage and killed the CEO. And underneath this picture of Musk, I saw this image posted by some Luigi fan. It's Batman sending a signal with Luigi's face on it. And I bring this up because I see Luigi class warfare posters around town. You can buy Luigi Mangione shirts at the mall here. And a conspiracy alarmist was walking through the Canal Street subway. Trendy Soho Manhattan fashion area. where high-end fashion stores were looted during the George Floyd riots. If you look closely, you can see under the white paint is an older Free Luigi scribble. Nice photo, and yeah, Free Luigi. Lean Dion says the images projected on the German Tesla factory as well. Yes. Yeah, this is intriguing. And anybody who's following Musk is following controlled opposition. The guy's a space faker. He cannot possibly be on your side. He's on he's in the PSYOP entertainment complex. And this is like true for all of these right-wing what do you want to call them? Like these almost like Mel Gibson and Musk and a few others. They're like they take on this status where they're seen as white hats, the QAnons. They're seen as like insiders. That's why Mel Gibson is the ambassador to Hollywood for Trump. It's pandering, and it's not a coincidence that Mel Gibson directed that movie Flight Risk, which just came out. And okay, I guess we're back. I don't know what that was about. OBS just collapsed. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. So we're back on. We'll give people time to show up. We were just talking about Free Luigi, the Free Luigi movement, and it looks like, okay, it looks like we're back on. It'll take a minute for everyone to show up. There's like a lag, but basically, the streaming software just fell asleep. Probably not going to be a problem, but one of the things I'm doing here is I'm adjusting to a new computer, I'm updating it, adding stuff to it, so I'm probably going to have to do a reset here in a bit anyway. So again, if you're just showing up, we had a interruption, and I'll tie these things together. I'll sew all these streams together. I haven't been keeping up with the archives lately, but I'm trying to fix that. All right, let's see what else we have. All right, Gondola Wish says, did you know that Elon is a manufactured version of El Yon, the father of Christ, translated as God Most High? The character of Elon is a mockery. Interesting. I had not heard that particular interpretation, but I'll take that into advisement as I compose the IPS deep dive number 2, which is going to focus on Musk. So let me go ahead and screen cap that. I want to hang on to that message. I can definitely work with that. Okay, it looks like I'm having some kind of technical glitches. I don't know if we're going to be able to work through this, or if it might be better for me to just use the remainder of this hour and perhaps stress test it, update everything, test out the Godzilla. So it looks like that's where we're at. So let me go ahead and just terminate this.